Hello and welcome. This is Rooflemonger, and my friends, today we are talking about Pokemon Close Combat, an indie-developed Pokemon fighting game. Now, I know you're probably thinking, wait a second, Pokemon fighting game, that could never work, and well, wait. Oh yeah. Remember that? That was weird, wasn't it? Decidedly to say, Pokemon Close Combat is not pokken. It's a proper 2D fighting game for one, and obviously, once again, this is indie developed, it's by the community and for the community. Very accessible by fighting game standards, and there's a lot of interesting things here with a lot of interesting character choices and gameplay decisions. So I figured in this video, let's just highlight what this game's all about. And if it sounds interesting to you, check out the video description, there'll be all sorts of links there where you can learn more about the game and download the game at that. This game is completely free to play because otherwise Nintendo's known for crashing down on folk, and this has been around for a few years now and they haven't destroyed them yet, so you figure it's probably here to stay. So first, let's take a look at the roster of the game. Obviously, fighting game, Pokemon fighting game, you got some Pokemon in the game. But other than Blaziken, it's not a lot of the obvious choices you would think, and I think that's one of the most charming things about the game. You got a lot of more non-standard picks, to put it that way. Like, say, Medicham. Would you ever expect Medicham in a fighting game over, say, Gardevoir? Probably not. We got our buddy Breloom here. We got Passimian, who's actually one of the most mechanically interesting characters in the game. We'll get into it. Tyrogue, we'll get into it. This is actually one of the most incredibly interesting characters I've ever seen in a fighting game. Because you see, it keeps changing up which character it is, right? Well, it's built into how the rounds work. Let's put it that way. Poliwrath, Scrafty, we got Phalanx. Phalanx is very interesting. Bewear as kind of like standard grappler, Toxicroak. So we got a lot of interesting characters. It's not just like, oh, it's Pikachu, oh, it's Mewtwo. There's some interesting roster choices in the game. And I think that's a big part of the charm is that it's not just the standard flag bearer Pokemon characters. So let's talk about the game itself. We got our pal Heracross here, can do a lot of interesting movement. But what kind of game is this, right? So this is what we would call a 3-button game. There's attack, and directions do a lot of different attacks. There's special, and special and directions will give you a lot of different kinds of special moves, as you would expect. And also the guard/parry button. So basically A, B, C. A is basic attacks. B is specials, C is parry, and it's multi-form because it does a lot of different things like throws as well, and some other stuff. So when it comes to the inputs, this is definitely a simpler style game. Now that said, it's not just easy inputs, so like a direction and a button. There is still like actual moves to the game, like as far as motions and such go. Like this move here, Heracross is somewhat, not fully, but somewhat analogous to say like Honda, right? He has kind of like a butt slam. Heracross also has a little bit of a headbutt going on here. And if we look at the move list here, if we want to do, say, the super move, it is charge back, forward, and then your special button. So there is actual motions to this. It's not just all easy inputs. And you might notice here at the bottom, we have another Heracross just like the art. That matters, that bar right there. That's the thing. That's your stamina bar. And stamina bar can be used for things like parry, but it's also a guard defense bar. Like you can be guard broken by getting hit by too many moves. So it's actually multiple factors that lead into it. So if you want to parry a lot, parry's really good. There's also a lot of powerful traits out of the parry button as well, besides just parrying itself. Like you can use this to basically cancel attacks along with super meter. And it's effectively about as useful as you think it would be, right? Like if I can get, a hit in, then cancel it out. Basically apply a little bit of Fighting Game 101 and it'll all kind of work itself out, right? So the gameplay systems are not terribly complex, and there's some other things like there's guard bursts and all that, naturally when we have basic throws, there's throw attacks, all the kind of stuff. It's a little basic, but it's kind of the charm of the game here. It's not here to overwhelm you with gameplay systems. It's here to give you cool Pokemon and have you fight, And speaking of that, let's talk about some of the Pokemon here. Let's start with Heracross. So I mentioned Heracross sort of like a Honda analog, right? Because it has, charge, like a headbutt style move, butt slam style move, charge character, a super that's charge back, forward, and then, you know, extra big headbutt, if you will, but a lot more than that, because Heracross is Heracross, and Heracross can fly, y'all. And this flight here can lead to some very, very interesting pressure options, like almost analogous to, like, say, like Sasquatch's hop or even Morgan's hop in like Darkstalkers, because you can kind of fly up just a little bit, because you can dash and then hold up the fly, right? So you can just dash up just a little bit and then be airborne just for a split second, and then gain access to airborne moves for, like, basically like things like instant overheads, which is really fun. You add that with the fact Heracross has a gigantic low, it has to be crouch blocked, right? And then you got all this like instant overhead nonsense, and then also a jumping dive kick move, which is a true overhead that has to be stand blocked, by the way. So you just kind of put some of the stuff together, right? And it's just like 50-50 high-low nonsense forever. And then keeping with some of the Honda isms here, we got some horn stabs here. You could argue if there's 100 of them or not. And just very good, like, you know, destroying the guard gauge that we mentioned earlier in the video. Lots of fun ways to use the meter as well, because you can enhance moves in this game. So you can enhance like the butt slam to make it like a dive kick as well. You can enhance the quote-unquote headbutt to make it a fake out low, which is interesting. Just a lot of cool stuff. And that's just one character of many. Like we mentioned Bewear before, right? Bewear is our grappler, big command grabs, and also a running bear grab. Who would have thought of that? Very interesting, right? But just a lot of fun movement, much faster than you would expect to. This character can run pretty quick. Good space control. You know, got the grappler cross up, the old classic, gotta have that. And then just some funny, tricky movement as well. Like, they can hit you at really odd angles, really easy for like cross ups. Very interesting momentum stuff as well. One of the jumping attacks here, you can see just kind of swings the tail, right? But if you do it while doing backwards, you go backwards an incredible amount. It's the grappler. You don't necessarily want to play runaway, but if you need space, this character can actually do it very well, very quickly. It's very acrobatic, and of course, you know, all sorts of grabs, all sorts of gimmicks. Poor Tombstone for Wobbuffet. A good grappler experience. But then we get to the characters that don't easily translate to another fighting game character, right? You could say Heracross like Honda, Bewear like Zangief. Then we get Passimian. If we had to compare this to another character, funnily enough, it'd be a very new modern character. It would be Ronaldo, I guess. But yeah, so Passimian is a stance character. Has the ball, right? And having the ball is a pretty big deal. You want to toss the ball, and you can do a lot of interesting tricks with the ball at that. But there's two stances. There's ball and there's no ball. And when you don't have the ball, then your moveset changes up entirely. And one of the things is becomes a bit of a grappler. So you can toss the ball here as a projectile. It will bounce. And then you gain access to a fairly quick, mostly unreactable command grab, which will give you back the ball and basically toss the enemy all the way out into the corner. Like, normals are very different as well. If you have the ball, like, you can just basically slam the ball into the opponent over and over. Lots of different ways to do that. Lots of interesting moves just utilizing it. When you do have the ball, you basically get like a short range teleport that can very annoyingly cross people up. It's one of those kind of moves. When you have it as well, you get basically effectively a command jump. So you can do air normals from this. And Passimian has very interesting air moves as well here, like kind of like a rotating multi-hitting move, like kind of like Monkey Copter, I guess. Basically just a lot of interesting ways to bully, right? And when you toss the ball, it's a very powerful projectile because it's basically, well, it's a projectile for one, right? And it bounces up and it's still an active hitbox the entire way through, which is annoying in all the ways you think it would be. So once you're out, you can basically just summon the ball again. You'll stand still, you're passive, you can be hit while doing it. But then once again, as we mentioned, you get the new moveset. But then once again, we get that command grab, as we mentioned earlier. But then we also get new air specials. It's basically a different kind of character. Even our super options switch up here. So if we have the ball, we have kind of like a stock standard super. We'll just keep bouncing the ball off their head and just kind of go from there. But if we don't have the super, then you see here a lot of confidence. This is basically an unstoppable counter super. I'll armor through everything, and Passimian will heal quite a bit here. I'll show you from the trailer just to give you a good idea how it works in action. So yeah, it gets to tank through everything and can cancel anytime you want. And the more you do it, the more you heal, right? So it's like, are you going to engage with this? Like, this is just very, very interesting. And when I say interesting, this is a lot of the cast. A lot of the cast has very fun stuff. Like, it is a more simplified fighting game in terms of like inputs, sure, but everyone can do very interesting things, and all sorts of archetypes are accounted for, right? We got, you know, more rush down, that'd be like primate. We got people that are kind of more like zoners, that'd be like phalanx. Phalanx is very interesting in game, by the way. You might notice here the characters, a lot of them have like non-standard fighting game shapes. Like Phalanx, obviously a lot longer than the average fighting game character. And like that actually matters. Like, this is one of the things where a lot of these characters are incredibly unique. Like, I can use all these little phalanxes like to poke, right? But what if they're not all there? What if they're out on duty doing their own thing, right? Because you can actually have them separate and effectively act like puppets, and they'll attack on their own. And then, like that one move we did before, it's not as long because the phalanx line isn't as long as it was before. So this is like incredible like zoning and space control, because we can have the various phalanxes out at different distances and controlling like different amounts of space. And, you know, when, you know, kind of Puppet 101, when they're in the right spot, it can be hard for the enemy. So like out of the gate, do you want to control various parts of the screen by tossing out your little buddies and having them attack and do all their kind of thing, right? Or do you want to keep them all in the link and then just get like gigantic space control, gigantic normals? Like, that's a thing you can do. Matters a lot too, because some of your, you know, enhanced moves, like right there, right? What is that? That's a bit of a grab. And with our buddies out, not so much, but if our buddies are in, I can just grab you from basically half across screen away. Like, it's silly. The moves are in this game are very inventive, much more beyond just like, you know, what you would expect out of a more simplistic button game. So again, so many great and inventive characters, and we mentioned here Tyrogue. So Tyrogue's one of the coolest, and by a lot. So when the match starts, you're always Tyrogue. Tyrogue famously a pre-evolution character, and notice here, below the health bar, we have different stats, a punch counter and a kick counter. That actually, truly, really matters, because you will not stay the pre-evolution the whole match. And depending on what you favor more, punch or kicks, will change up how the character goes. So we got a lot more punches this time around, so next round starts, and you're no longer Tyrogue, you are now Hitmonchan. You're a completely different character, fully different moveset entirely. And it doesn't have to be that way. So you always will start as Tyrogue, but you can also turn into Hitmonlee or Hitmontop, depending on how the fight as Tyrogue goes. So it's not necessarily a stance-based character, although you can force the evolution mid-round if you want to spend meter. But basically, when the round changes, the character you are, depending on how you played as Tyrogue, will change up, and you'll get a completely different character based on that exactly, which is super, super interesting to me. Hitmonchan is a bit more like a shorter range, rush down pressure, that kind of stuff. Hitmonlee, a bit more mid-screen. He's got some really good range to him. Hitmontop's got very silly movement options, very unpredictable. So when I'm talking about the roster and just like the general moveset everybody has being very interesting, this is what I'm talking about. They're very willing to make, you know, changes on some traditional archetypes and just go places that you normally can't go in a fighting game, you know, because this is a fan-made game for the community. You don't got to worry about like stockholders and stuff like that, right? So they can kind of just do whatever they think is cool, and that's very, very interesting. And of course, there's more than just like training mode, what I'm showing you in like basic verses, right? There's the path, which is a more traditional, I guess you would call an arcade mode style experience. You know, there's a little bit of a story as well. You have basically what you would expect out of it. You know, it's a classic fighting game experience, and you can kind of go through the usual arcade mode as it is and just have a lot of fun with that as it stands. There's also event mode. Work in progress. They're still adding stuff all the time. Right now we have Toga Ball. That's it. And Toga Ball is a bit of an experiment of how much can you keep the ball in the air, if you will, right? The more and more you can juggle the things around before touching the ground, you get more points. So far, personally, I've not been personally amazing at it. Not my skill set as a fighting game player, but it's fun to mess around with kind of stuff. There is net play, being a smaller indie experience, though, not exactly full integration. You're going to have to use the Lilith port, which is built into the launcher. You can go from there. I'll have links for all that in the video description if you want to check that out. Very active community, very close-knit community. I'll provide the Discord and all that. And they're also doing a little bit of a tournament series right now, the Bubble Blast Beatdown Tournament Series, where the eventual winner of the series will choose a new character to go into the game. which is certainly a bit different. You know, it's pretty high stakes. You know, it's all indie stuff, so we're not exactly playing for like $1 million or nothing. But if you get to win, you get to choose a character in the game. So I think that's pretty cool myself. So once again, all that info will be in the video description if you want to check it out. But I think this is a very interesting way to go about it. And once again, I think this is just kind of a cool game. It's completely free. It's an indie game, indie experience. Doesn't cost you a dime to check it out. So why not give it a quick check? So that is Pokemon Close Combat, all in all. I think it's pretty interesting. I think it's worth you just trying it out for a few hours at a minimum. Just mess around with your friends and just see how it goes. Once again, all the stuff's in the video description. Then that is the end of the video. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some fighting games.